She would actually have a miscarriage maybe a couple of weeks after she won that battle. Welcome to the Old Dirty History channel. My name is Laurier. Thank you so much for clicking my video. This video is part 2 of an unknown number of videos series where I'm talking about King Henry VIII of England. If you did not check out part 1 of this series, I'll include the link. If you're interested, check it out. I definitely recommend it, but if you don't want to, that's fine with me. I'm just glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for clicking that button. If you like my videos, I would really appreciate it if you click the subscribe button, the like button, the notification button, all the buttons that YouTube has for you to click for this channel. Click all those buttons. Let's talk about Mr. King Henry VIII of England. Last video, I talked a little bit about how Henry was brought up in English court, how he wasn't supposed to be king, but then his brother who was going to be king dies. Henry goes on to marry his late brother's widow, and then his father dies, and then he becomes king at the young, ripe age of just 17. Henry and his wife Catherine's marriage begins to crumble because Catherine cannot give Henry an heir, a boy, because at this time, women can't rule. So Henry's not very happy when Catherine gives him a daughter who was named Mary. So I thought about it a little bit when I was preparing for the second video, and I decided, you know what, I feel like I'm moving a little too fast as far as describing his life, and I don't want to solely focus on Henry's marriages to these many women. He's a multifaceted person. At least I think he was, like you and I. We are more than just the people we sleep with.
Are you sure about that?
So I don't want to just focus on his marriages. So I'm going to take it back a little bit and go back to when he first becomes king after his father dies. And yeah, we'll just keep going from there. So like I said, Henry was only the ripe age of 17 when he became king of England. And there are other monarchs who became kings and queens younger than that, but I think 17 is a pretty young age. I know when I was 17, I was doing all kinds of shit, so I can't imagine being a king of a country at 17. Henry made English court a lot more lively. They went from having his stuck-up, old, obnoxious, miser, penny-pinching father to young, vibrant, easygoing, fun Henry VIII. And there's documented accounts that give us an idea of what English court was like during young Henry's reign when he was a kid. And it said that it was very fun, and there was always games going on, and he was a bit of a prankster. What I really picture is a bunch of young guys just running around a castle acting like a bunch of fools. Essentially a frat house. Like, that's what I have in my mind, is that English court was a frat house when Henry became king of England in my head. And so part of that included Henry doing a lot of jokes towards people.
Got him. You just got pranked. Just got pranked.
So Henry had nonstop parties in this castle, and because his father pretty much ripped off all of his subjects, Henry went into his reign with a lot of money. So he was able to use all that money to throw these parties and these masquerades and these little plays. And frequently, Henry liked to, of course, make himself the center of attention in everything he did as far as the plays and the masquerades. Henry was definitely a narcissist. Like, it is obvious based on everything that's written about this man, is that he was feeling himself really hard when he was alive. That didn't sound right. So Henry decides to dress up as Robin Hood, and he has his little best friends dress up as his merry men, and they bust into his wife Catherine's bedroom doing, I don't know. I don't know what they did. I don't know if he gave her money or what it entailed. I just know that he went in dressed up like Robin Hood, and Catherine probably pretended like she really cared, like it was so cute. It was like, oh my God, this is adorable. You're dressed as Robin Hood. Thank you, babe. This is amazing. You're so cute. That's probably what she did. Now, these friends of Henry's were his little tight circle. Just like his dad, he had his own little circle of friends. And I'm not going to go through the whole list of all these people. There's one specific person that I do want to briefly mention, because this guy pops up a lot in his life because this is his closest friend. This is like Henry's BFF, like up here. English court is Charles Brandon's life from birth and up. So in essence, him and young Henry kind of grew up together. So they became close. And over the course of their relationship, Charles Brandon would go on to obtain many roles, really nice high up positions within Henry's household. At one point, Brandon becomes Henry's master of horse, which, if it doesn't sound obvious, he took care of the horses for Henry. At another point, he becomes Henry's comptroller, which, if I'm taking a wild guess, I'm assuming this means that he handled the money for Henry's household. And then at another point, he also even marries Henry's young sister, Mary Tudor, without Henry's permission. And this really pisses Henry off. So he banishes Brandon and his sister from English court. Eventually they get back in his good graces, but you know, it takes a little bit of time. Why did he get mad at his sister and his best friend for marrying behind his back? Well, at this time, you had to have the permission of your monarch, and more specifically speaking, this was his sister. And if you don't know, women were used as bargaining chips quite a bit in history, not just in England, but many other countries. So potentially Henry could have used his little sister for political gain or for an ally or a treaty, anything, by marrying her off to someone else. And he lost the ability to do that. It's not okay. It's not right. I don't agree with it. This is history. It is what it is. So Henry and his friends, damn, is the sun setting?
What?
Jesus, hold up. I go dark in here. Goddamn. Okay. So Henry and his friends romanticized everyday life. Like, they had dreams of finding glory and wealth, and they believed in the whole damsels in distress and rescuing them and knighthood and all that jazz. He was really encouraged by his friends with all of this bullshit. One of the aspects of, you know, being all knightly and everything, something that really ties into it, is the sport of jousting. And if you're not familiar with what jousting is, I like to equate it to their version of American football. Jousting was their American football. Like, it was the sport, and anyone who was a nobleman that was into the sport did it. And if you don't exactly know what it entails, it's pretty much you have like this, you know, bar, and there's one guy on one side, one guy on the other side of it on opposite ends. They're on horses, and they literally just go full force at each other holding a large metal wooden stick, and they pretty much just hit each other with the stick at full force. Sounds like fun. So this is the sport of the day. And Henry really wants to partake in jousting. But the problem is that his council, they're like, no, Henry, that is a bad idea. Like, you are a king, we depend on you, and if you die, you can't rule, and we could go into an all-out war like we have previously. So no, Henry, no. But Henry's like, bump that. Like, I am a king. I am young. I'm hot. I'm famous. I will do what the hell I want. So Henry does just that. He decides that he wants to play Prince and the Pauper, dresses himself up as a knight, a mystery knight. And the only people that know about this are his closest friends and his servant that helps him. So he goes out to this jousting tournament. His council doesn't know it's him. Almost everybody doesn't know it's him. Mounts the horse, gets knocked the fuck out. Just knocked out.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
But luckily for young Henry, he's fine. He gets up, dusts himself off, and by this point, everybody knows that it's Henry, because the people that do know it's him, they're like, "Me lord, king down, me lord is down on the ground." And they're like, who the f***? That's the king? Jesus Christ. Now, the problem with this is that this is the first time that young Henry just outright in public goes against his council. And this is the problem. This shows discord between him and his council. And this will become a reoccurring theme for Henry, not just disagreeing or going against his counsel in public, but also getting knocked the out on horses. So it doesn't stop there for Henry. Now, Henry's romanticized ideas of chivalry also tied into war and military. He really wanted to be known as that king who has a lot of military exploits underneath his belt. Now, the problem with this is that England was at peace after years of war, specifically internal strife. They were at peace. They didn't have any enemies. So who the hell do I fight when we're at peace? So the perfect opportunity came about for Henry. So France was a longtime enemy of England. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of it, but they have a history of strife. Now, Henry thought it would be the perfect opportunity to make himself a military king by going after France and taking back what England believed to be rightfully theirs, and that was the French throne. So young Henry joined then Pope Julius II's Holy League. The Holy League was essentially a group of nations that took part in this war called the War of the League of Cambria. I know I mispronounced that, so yeah. It was essentially a war that was launched by the Pope to get France out of Italy. So young Henry joins the Pope's Holy League. And on November 17th, 1511, he signs a treaty called the Treaty of Westminster. This was essentially an agreement between Henry and the Pope that he would protect the papacy at all costs. Now, this was the perfect opportunity for Henry because A, he could show everybody how much he loved the Pope. Now, at this time, Henry loves him some Pope. And the other great thing about it is that he has an excuse to go in and with France. And that's exactly what he does. Now, he was also encouraged by his little friends, including his father-in-law, the King of Spain. King Ferdinand, the King of Spain, he had his own reasons as to why he wanted Henry to fight the French, which I won't get into, but everybody was pretty much in Henry's ears like, yeah, man, do it. I know that we're at peace. I know that everything is great right now, and we're living in one of the most prosperous times in English history in a long time, but do it, man, do it. This is a great idea. Now, as part of this campaign, young Henry fought France on France's turf in a battle called the Battle of the Spurs. And this took place on August 16th, 1513. Now, in the end, Henry does beat the French. It wasn't really a noteworthy achievement. You know, it's not like he took the French crown like he had envisioned in his perfect little fantasy. He took back some, you know, areas that were supposed to be England's, but nothing really major. While Henry was doing this, the real battle was actually happening back at home on the border of Scotland and England. Now, the King of Scotland at this time, his name was James IV. And James and Scotland were actually at peace with England during this time because of Henry's father. Henry VII and James made an agreement that they would remain in peace. And part of that agreement was that James married Henry's sister, Margaret Tudor. So this is essentially Henry's brother-in-law. And he's also technically a longtime enemy. France wasn't the only longtime rival / enemy of England. Scotland was as well. And if you don't look at a map in this specific area much, Scotland is like right there on the border of England. So long time history, a lot of bad blood. But Henry VII, Henry's dad, he took care of it before he died and made this little, you know, peace agreement. The problem is that Scotland was an ally of France. And good old young Henry decided that he wanted to go after France. So this puts James in a bind. He's like, oh my God, my brother-in-law is going over there, messing with my ally, and I'm sitting here next to his sister, aka my wife, trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. Do I just sit here when that's my ally and just be like, stay the out of it? No, I can't, because that's my ally. I have to do this. I have to fight England if he doesn't stop. Now, James tries several times to get Henry to not go to France and fight France. Literally several times. He sends him letter after letter. I beseech you, please, please do not fight France. I beg of you. And Henry's like, bump that. I'm young. I'm hot. I'm going to fight France. Just like I told my council, I'm going to do what I want to do. So Henry doesn't listen. James even takes his time going to England, crossing the border in the hopes that Henry changes his mind, but he doesn't. It falls on deaf ears, so James realizes, okay, I'm gonna have to do this. Now, there were many people in James's ear saying, just don't do it, bruh. Just don't do it. It's just, bruh, it is not worth it.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
But he does it anyway. Now, King James does build a sizable army, about 40,000 men. And he takes his sweet time doing it because, again, he's trying to give Henry the chance to back down from fighting France. Now, as James is moving in on England, Henry is still in France. So in his mind, in James's mind, he's like, well, a lot of his men are over there in France with him, so this should be a wash, man. Like, we shouldn't have any problem. But homeboy was wrong. He was sorely wrong. Because the thing is that good old ride or die Catherine, Henry's wife, she had her hubby's back big time. And when Henry left to go to France, he made Catherine regent of England. And essentially what that means is that technically, even though Catherine is a queen, she can act on behalf of the king as a king for the most part. So this includes military stuff, other stuff, just all the king's stuff. Now, Catherine wasn't the only one that was protecting England from Scotland during this time. There was also Henry's lieutenant general, and his name was Thomas Howard, the Earl of Surrey. Catherine and the Earl, they meet up. They completely destroy James and his army. It said that James's army fought valiantly, but it just wasn't enough. He was defeated and James died in the battle. Now, there are several different accounts on how many people died on each side. Like, everybody's putting their, on the table. So who knows who's right? England claims only about 500 Englishmen died, and then 10,000 to 12,000 Scots died. We'll never know. But we do know that England won. Now, the name of this battle was called the Battle of Flodden, even though it took place in Northumbria. Make that make sense? I don't get why that was named that. Now, what's really interesting is that Catherine was pregnant when she went to battle with the Scots. I'm just picturing this chick just pregnant, just riding out on her horse like, to war for England. How? I cannot, no. And then what's really sad is shortly after that battle, even though she was successful with the battle, she has a miscarriage. It's sad, but it happened. One thing that is really funny, and I'm sorry, no, I'm not sorry. I'm laughing because I have a dark sense of humor. It just is what it is. It's how I've always been. Catherine did something that just makes me laugh. When she defeated King James, she took his bloody cloak and she mailed it over to her husband, who was still in France fighting his little battle. She brings it to him as a gift and she says, "Dear honey, please accept this cloak on my behalf as a token of my love and affection for you." She doesn't exactly say this. This is just like paraphrasing. She goes on to say that this cloak was the cloak of the King of Scotland, King James IV. Please accept this blood-soaked cloak. I wanted to send you his corpse, but your fellow Englishmen, they would not let me because they said, nah, sis, we don't do that here. We don't do that shit in England. Like, we don't send bodies via Amazon Prime to our friends and our loved ones. The bloody cloak will have to do. I'm sorry. The bloody cloak will have to do. She legit wanted to send her husband a dead body as a token of her love and affection. She was crazy. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of this little mini series. I'll come back with part 3 hopefully in a week or so. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.
Perfect.